The first gunshot echoed through the emergency bay before anyone understood what it meant. A sharp crack, too loud for a dropped tray, too clean for an accident. Nurses froze mid-step. A man screamed. Somewhere near the ambulance doors, glass shattered and a security guard went down hard, his body folding like cardboard. At Mercy Harbor Medical Center, power outages were expected. Violence was not. Richard Hale felt the pain before he heard the alarms. It bloomed deep in his abdomen, hot and spreading, stealing his breath. He tried to stand and couldn't. His knees buckled. Blood soaked through his pressed slacks, dark and fast, pooling on the polished concrete like spilled ink. Around him, voices collided. Someone shouted for lockdown. Someone else shouted his name. He hated that they used it. Get him inside, now. They dragged him on a gurney that rattled with every seam in the floor. The ceiling lights streaked above him, white and merciless. His vision tunneled. He tasted copper. The man who had spent a lifetime giving orders was suddenly horizontal, helpless, listening to strangers argue over his body. Trauma 1. Prep the room. We're losing him. A young resident with shaking hands pressed gauze into the wound. Hale grabbed his wrist, fingers slick with blood. His grip was weak, and that terrified him more than the pain. Don't let some intern cut me open, he rasped. Get me someone who knows what they're doing. The resident swallowed. His eyes flicked toward the nurse station where a woman stood completely still. She didn't rush. She didn't speak. She watched. Dr. Elena Brooks wore plain navy scrubs, no jewelry, hair pulled back tight. Her face gave nothing away. But her eyes tracked everything. The blood loss, the angle of the wound, the sound Hale made when he breathed. She noted the way the guards flinched toward him, protective, nervous. She noted the way administration hovered just outside the room, already calculating liability. Someone whispered, "She's not scheduled." Another voice snapped, "We don't have a choice." Elena stepped forward at last. Latex snapped over her hands, the sound sharp in the sudden quiet. Her voice cut clean through the chaos. "Everyone out who doesn't belong." Hale turned his head. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. Something shifted in his chest that had nothing to do with blood loss. Recognition flickered, uninvited and unwelcome. Not memory. Something worse. Instinct. "Who is she?" he demanded. The nurse beside him answered without looking at him. "She's the one you call when the rules stop working." Outside, the automatic doors locked with a heavy mechanical thud, and somewhere deep in the hospital, cameras quietly went dark. The monitors began to scream before anyone said the word crash, a flat, rising tone that cut through the room and scraped along the spine. Elena didn't look at the screen. She looked at Hale's face, the color draining, the jaw tightening, the micro-twitch in his left eye that meant pain was losing the argument with fear. "Clamp. Now." The resident fumbled. Elena didn't raise her voice. She stepped in, displaced him with a shoulder, and took the instrument herself. Her movements were precise, economical, almost gentle. Blood slowed. Not stopped. Not yet. She leaned closer, her breath steady against the mask, counting the seconds between heartbeats. The room followed her rhythm without realizing it. "Who authorized this?" A man in a grey suit barked from the doorway. "Hospital Council." Elena didn't look up. Authorization comes after survival. A guard tried to enter. Elena lifted a hand. He stopped. He didn't know why. Neither did she care. She felt the room tilt toward her, the gravity of decision settling in her palms. She saw the wound for what it was. Not random, not clean, not the work of chance. The trajectory told a story. The angle told another. Someone wanted Hale alive long enough to reach this room. Someone wanted him quiet after. Hale's eyes found hers again. He searched her face like a man reading a verdict. "Don't let them take me upstairs," he whispered. His voice cracked on the last word. She heard the plural. "Them." Elena's jaw set. "Prep for exploratory. We're staying right here." "That's not protocol," the resident said, breathless. "Protocols don't bleed," Elena said. "People do." She felt it then. The presence behind the glass. The way conversations died when she turned. The way phones came out and went away. She caught a reflection in the stainless steel cabinet. Herself, centered, controlled, with a room full of authority bending around her. She had been underestimated her entire life. It had never once worked in their favor. A nurse leaned in, voice low. "Security says the shooter's gone. No weapon recovered." Elena nodded without acknowledging the relief. Gone meant waiting. Gone meant watching. She made a cut, clean, deliberate. Hale gasped, then steadied as her hand guided him back. "Stay with me," she said, not softly, not kindly. "Stay." His fingers curled, finding the edge of the gurney. He obeyed. Outside, an elevator chimed. Too close. Too soon. Elena looked up at the clock, then at the door, then back to the wound that refused to be simple. She realized with absolute clarity that this night wasn't about saving a life. It was about deciding who controlled it. The elevator doors opened anyway. A soft chime, polite, almost apologetic. Elena felt it ripple through the room like a bad omen. Two men stepped out first, suits tailored, eyes scanning corners instead of faces. Behind them came a woman in heels that clicked too loud for a trauma bay. Administration, control trying to reassert itself. "We're transferring him upstairs," the woman said, already holding a clipboard. "Executive suite. Private security." Elena didn't answer. She kept working, fingers slick, mind clear. Hale's breathing hitched. His pulse jumped. He heard the word transfer, and something feral surfaced in his eyes. "No," he whispered. The sound barely made it past his teeth. The suits moved closer. One of them leaned toward the resident. "This is above your pay grade." Elena finally looked up. Her eyes were flat, unblinking. "Not tonight." "Excuse me?" "You heard me." The room held its breath. Somewhere, a cart rattled. Somewhere else, a radio crackled and went silent. The woman with the clipboard smiled tightly. "Doctor, you're making a mistake." Elena wiped her hands once, slow. She stepped back just enough for them to see the blood on her gloves, the reality they wanted to float above. Mistakes are rushed. This is intentional. She turned back to Hale. He was shaking now, the adrenaline burning off, leaving him exposed. His voice found strength just long enough to betray himself. "They can't know I'm awake yet," he said. The word "yet" landed hard. Elena paused. A fraction of a second. "Enough. I need everyone out except my team," she said. Then quieter. "Lock the bay." Security hesitated. Then the doors slid shut. A heavy latch engaged. The click echoed like a verdict. The woman's smile vanished. "You can't do this." Elena met her gaze. Already did. Behind the glass, phones lit up. Faces pressed close. Power doesn't like being shut out. It pushes back. Elena felt it coming like pressure in her ears before a storm. She leaned in close to Hale, her voice low enough that only he could hear. Someone didn't miss tonight. Someone aimed for here. His eyes widened. "You're sure?" She nodded once. "I don't believe in coincidences that bleed." A nurse spoke up, shaking. "Dr. Brooks, if they override us." "They won't," Eleanor said. "Not yet." She straightened, shoulders squared. Whatever game had started outside this room, it had moved onto her field now. Bright lights, witnesses, blood on the floor. Hale exhaled, a sound caught between relief and dread. For the first time since the gunshot, he understood the danger wasn't the wound. It was the people who wanted him moved before he could speak. The override came from the ceiling speakers, calm and synthetic. "Code authority transfer. Repeat. Code authority transfer." The doors trembled once as the lock disengaged, then slid open against Elena's will. Power always found a way to announce itself. 2 uniformed officers stepped in first, hands resting too close to their belts. Behind them was a man Elena hadn't seen in years, though she would have recognized his posture anywhere. Broad shoulders, military haircut gone corporate, a face trained to show concern while calculating leverage. Nathan Cole, risk management consultant, on paper. Something else in practice. "Elena," he said, like they were old friends meeting for coffee. "You're out of bounds." She didn't answer him. She checked the monitor. Hale's pressure dipped, then stabilized. He was listening now, eyes flicking between faces, reading the room faster than his body could heal. Cole stepped closer. "We appreciate what you've done. Truly. But this is where you hand it off." "To who?" Elena asked. Her voice was even, almost bored. Cole smiled thinly. "People with clearance." Hale laughed. It came out wet and wrong. "Clearance won't stop me from bleeding out," he said, "or talking." Cole's jaw tightened. He glanced at the officers. "Let's not escalate." Elena finally looked at him fully. Her gaze held something sharp. "You're late." His smile flickered. "Am I?" "By about 10 years, she said. The words landed harder than she intended. A ripple of recognition passed over his face before he could stop it. Hale noticed. He always noticed. Elena returned to the table. She adjusted the drape, changed a suction line, bought time with her hands while her mind ran ahead. Cole leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You don't know what you're standing in front of." She met his eyes. "I know exactly what it smells like." One of the officers shifted, uncomfortable. "Sir, we have orders." Cole raised a hand. "Wait." Hale's breathing grew shallow. Eleanor placed a steady palm on his shoulder. "Stay with me," she said. He did. Against instinct, against fear. Because her certainty was contagious. Cole straightened. "Elena, think carefully. There are consequences." She nodded. "Always are." Outside the bay, raised voices spilled into the corridor. Someone was filming. Someone was calling someone else. The night was expanding beyond the hospital walls now, stretching toward something public and dangerous. Elena leaned in close to Hale, her voice a blade wrapped in calm. "Whatever you're afraid of upstairs is already here." His eyes locked on hers. "Then tell me what to do." She straightened slowly. Her decision was already made. "We don't move you. Not yet. And when they push harder, we let them. Because the truth doesn't surface when it's protected. It surfaces when it's cornered." The first camera light flickered on without permission. A small red dot near the ceiling vent, barely noticeable unless you were trained to look for it. Elena saw it immediately. Cole did too. Their eyes met for a split second, an unspoken acknowledgement that the room was no longer sealed. Hale followed her gaze. "Media?" he asked. "Not officially," Elena said, "which makes it worse." Cole exhaled slowly. "This is spiraling." "You came here knowing it would," Elena replied. "Don't pretend otherwise." One of the officers pressed a finger to his earpiece. "Sir, we have a situation. Protesters outside. Someone leaked the name." Hale closed his eyes. The weight of it settled in. Years of influence. Years of silence, bought and paid for. All of it thinning now, stretched by blood loss and fluorescent light. He opened his eyes again, sharper. "Who leaked it?" Cole didn't answer. Elena adjusted the IV, her movements steady. Hale watched her hands, the way they never hesitated. "You're not afraid," he said. She paused, just enough to be honest. "I am. But fear doesn't get to drive tonight." The officer near the door shifted his stance. "Sir, orders are changing. They want him stabilized and moved before press gets inside." Elena shook her head once. "He's not stable." Cole stepped forward. "Elena, listen to yourself. You're making this about something else." She looked at him, really looked this time. "About what?" His silence was answer enough. Hale's voice cut in, hoarse but controlled. "I stay." His hand tightened on the gurney rail. "Not because I trust any of you. Because I trust what happens when I don't move." Cole stared at him. "You don't understand what you're risking." Hale almost smiled. "I understand exactly. That's why they shot me where they did. Not to kill me, to slow me down." A murmur rippled through the room. The resident looked at Elena like she'd just rewritten gravity. Elena felt the tempo shift, the night leaning forward. Outside, a chant started, muffled, angry, names rising and falling like a tide. Elena leaned in close to Hale. "This will get ugly." He met her gaze. "It already is." A nurse whispered, "Dr. Brooks, we're getting calls from upstairs, from downtown, from Washington." Elena straightened. "Good." Cole's voice hardened. "You're forcing their hand." "No," Elena said. "I'm removing their cover." The camera light blinked again. Somewhere, a producer smiled. Somewhere else, a decision was made that would not be undone. Elena looked around the room, at the fear, at the loyalty, at the cracks forming in a system built on quiet compliance. She felt the weight of it press into her chest. Then she spoke, clear and deliberate. Nobody moves him, not until the story catches up to the wound. And for the first time all night, the room listened. The chant outside grew louder, less organized, more dangerous. Words blurred into noise, but the anger carried clean through concrete and glass. Elena felt it vibrate in the soles of her shoes. Hale heard it too. His fingers flexed once, then stilled, as if reminding himself not to reach for a power that no longer answered on command. Cole checked his phone again. No signal. He frowned. That shouldn't have happened. The resident glanced toward the door. "Dr. Brooks, if they breach—" "They won't," Elena said. "Not yet. Crowds don't move until someone gives them a reason." Hale's voice was rough, or takes one away. A sharp knock hit the glass. Not security. Not administration. 2 uniformed paramedics stood outside, unfamiliar faces, posture too rigid. Elena's eyes narrowed. She recognized the cadence before the uniforms. Military trained, contracted. Someone else's people. Cole saw it at the same time. His mouth tightened. He moved toward the door, intercepting. "Gentlemen, this area is restricted." One of the paramedics smiled without warmth. "We're here to assist with transport." Transport was the word everyone kept using when they meant removal. Elena stepped forward, placing herself between Hale and the door. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "This patient is not cleared." The man's smile didn't falter. "Orders say otherwise." Hale shifted, pain flaring. "Orders from who?" The paramedic hesitated. "Long enough." Elena caught it. She leaned in. "Say the name." The man's jaw clenched. He didn't answer. Cole exhaled sharply. "Enough. This is turning into a spectacle." "Good," Elena said. "Spectacles draw witnesses." A nurse gasped softly. "Dr. Brooks, his pressure." Elena glanced at the monitor. Hale followed her eyes. He saw the numbers slip, then recover. He felt the truth settle in his bones. They weren't trying to save him anymore. They were trying to time him. Hale spoke, louder now. "If I leave this room, I die somewhere quieter." No one contradicted him. Outside, a siren wailed, close, then cut off abruptly. Elena felt the hair on her arms rise. That wasn't police. That was coordination. Cole stepped back, suddenly pale. "Elena, this is bigger than you think." She met his gaze. "I know." That's why I'm still standing. Hale reached for her sleeve. His grip was weak, but deliberate. When this breaks, he said, it's going to break on you. She nodded once. I can take it. The paramedics exchanged a look. One tapped his radio. Static answered. No confirmation. No override. Elena felt the moment shift. A fracture. The system hesitating because someone hadn't anticipated resistance from the wrong place. She straightened, voice carrying. Step away from the bed. The paramedics didn't move. Hale closed his eyes, then opened them again. He made a choice. If I don't make it through the night, he said, every name I know goes public. Silence fell. Heavy. Absolute. The paramedics stepped back. Cole stared at Hale like he was seeing him for the first time. Not as an asset. Not as a problem. As a threat. The first scream came from the hallway, not anger. Pain. Sharp and sudden, followed by the sound of bodies scrambling backward. Someone had pushed too far outside, and the night answered. Elena didn't flinch. She felt the air change, the way it did right before things broke. The paramedics stiffened. One of them reached for something under his jacket and stopped when Elena's eyes locked on his hand. Don't, she said. One word. Flat. Final. Hale turned his head slightly. He could hear it now. The scuffle. The panic. Someone shouting about live feed, about phones, about a face recognized too late. His breathing steadied, not because the pain had eased, but because the uncertainty had. This wasn't a clean extraction anymore. This was exposure. Cole pressed his palms together, a nervous habit he'd never quite lost. This wasn't supposed to turn public, he muttered. Elena looked at him. That's the problem with secrets. They rot when they're buried too long. A nurse hurried in, eyes wide. Dr. Brooks, security says someone's streaming from the ambulance bay. Thousands watching already. Hale closed his eyes. Then he laughed, quiet, almost fond. He looked at Elena. You planned this. She shook her head. I planned for it. The difference mattered. Outside the glass, a crowd surged forward, drawn by movement, by rumors turning into images. The hospital had become a stage, and the script was slipping out of everyone's hands. Elena felt the weight of it settle. She wasn't just holding a patient together anymore. She was holding a line. The resident leaned in, voice barely steady. If they come through, they won't, Elena said. Not without cameras, and not without questions. Hale swallowed, pain flickering. Then he spoke, louder, carrying. I'm awake, I'm coherent, and I'm staying. The words cut clean. Someone outside repeated them. Someone else typed them. Somewhere far away, a switch flipped from delay to response. Cole stepped back like the floor had shifted beneath him. You have no idea what you've just triggered. Elena finally allowed herself to look tired. I do. And it's overdue. A phone rang inside the room. Not a cell. A landline. Old, secure. Cole stared at it like it might bite. Elena didn't answer it. Hale did. His voice was thin, but steady. Yes, he said. I'm here. No, I'm not moving. Pause. Then, with a faint smile, good. Then you'll hear it from me first. He hung up. Elena met his eyes. You just drew blood. He nodded. They did first. Outside, the chant shifted. Less rage now, more demand. Names, questions, accountability clawing its way to the surface. Elena turned back to the wound, hands steady. The night was no longer about hiding the truth. It was about surviving it. The power went out without warning. Not a flicker, not a surge. 1 second, the room was flooded with white light. The next, it dropped into emergency red. Shadows stretching long and distorted across the walls. The monitors stuttered, then resumed on battery, their beeps slower, heavier. Cole swore under his breath. That's not city grid. Elena didn't answer. She had already moved, repositioning the light, anchoring the room around the bed. Hale's chest rose and fell, shallow but controlled. He looked at the ceiling, then at her. Backup plan, he asked. She met his gaze. This is it. The landline rang again. Longer this time. More insistent. Elena ignored it. The paramedics backed away, hands visible now, suddenly very aware of how many lenses were pointed in their direction, beyond the glass. Outside, the crowd surged at the blackout. Phones lit the night like fireflies. Someone shouted sabotage. Someone else shouted cover-up. The word conspiracy rippled outward, gaining weight with every repeat. A nurse whispered, Dr. Brooks, pharmacy says the backup generators were manually delayed. Elena's jaw tightened. Of course they were. Hale laughed once, then winced. They're still trying to slow me down. Elena leaned in close, voice low. Then we speed up. She signaled the resident. Prep to close. We're not waiting for permission. Cole stepped forward, panic bleeding through his control. You can't rush this. She looked at him coldly. Watch me. Her hands moved faster now, decisive, practiced. The wound didn't argue. It responded. Blood loss slowed. Hale's breathing steadied. Every second they stayed visible was another second the narrative shifted out of private hands. The landline rang a third time. Hale reached for it, fingers trembling. Elena covered his hand gently. Not yet. Outside, a siren cut through the noise. This one was real. Police. Too many to ignore. Too many to spin. Cole's phone buzzed back to life. He glanced at the screen and went pale. They're pulling out, he said. Whoever sent them. They're cutting losses. Elena didn't slow. Good. Hale exhaled, something like relief crossing his face. Then tell me when. She tied off the last line and looked up. Now. He picked up the phone. This time, the truth didn't wait on the other end. The voice on the other end didn't introduce itself. It didn't need to. Hale recognized the cadence instantly, measured and distant, the kind of tone used when decisions were already made. You've created a problem, it said. Hale smiled faintly. No. I exposed one. Elena kept her eyes on the wound, but she listened. Every muscle in her back stayed tight. This was the moment when threats stopped being implied. You were supposed to be moved, the voice continued. Quietly, This spectacle benefits no one. Hale's grip tightened on the receiver. That's where you're wrong. It benefits everyone who didn't know they were lying to themselves. A pause. Longer this time. Calculating. Names, Hale said. You want this to stop? You give me names, not summaries, not committees. Names. Elena felt the weight of the room lean toward the phone. Even Cole had stopped pretending not to listen. You're bleeding out, the voice tried. You're not thinking clearly. Hale glanced at Elena. She met his eyes and gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. He felt steadier than he had all night. I'm thinking clearer than I have in years. Silence. Then a sigh, barely audible. If you proceed, there will be consequences. Hale's voice hardened. There already were. The line clicked dead. Outside, the sound changed again. Less chanting, more shouting. Sirens layered over sirens. The pressure was breaking outward now, not inward. Elena finished closing. She stripped off her gloves slowly, deliberately. The room smelled like antiseptic and sweat and something older, something burned away. She looked at Hale. You just crossed a line you don't get to uncross. He nodded. I know. Cole sank into a chair, hollow-eyed. They're going to burn everything around you to contain this. Elena wiped her hands. Let them try. A nurse rushed in. Dr. Brooks, police are asking for statements. Media's demanding confirmation. They're saying this is an attempted suppression. Elena looked at Hale. He looked back, resolute. Not tonight, he said. Tonight I rest. Tomorrow I speak. Outside the glass, cameras flashed. Inside the room, something finally eased. Not the danger, the illusion. Elena turned back to the bed, voice quiet but firm. Then we make sure you're here to do it. And for the first time since the gunshot, the night stopped accelerating. Morning crept in through the narrow windows, like it wasn't sure it was welcome. Grey light, thin and unforgiving, washed over the room and made everything look smaller. The blood had been cleaned. The instruments were gone. What remained was exhaustion and the low, constant hum of consequences lining up outside the door. Hale slept at last. Not peacefully, but deeply, his body finally claiming what it had been denied all night. The monitors ticked on, steady. Elena stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed, watching his chest rise and fall. She hadn't slept. She hadn't sat. Adrenaline had carried her through, and now only discipline kept her upright. Cole hovered near the wall, jacket rumpled, eyes rimmed red. They're forming task forces already, he said quietly. Internal reviews, external reviews. Everyone's distancing themselves. Elena didn't turn. That's what happens when the story escapes the building. A uniformed officer stepped in, careful now, respectful in a way he hadn't been hours earlier. Doctor, when he wakes, there will be formal requests. Testimony, protection details. Elena nodded once. He'll decide. The officer hesitated. And you? She finally looked at him. Her gaze was steady, unreadable. I'll be working. Outside the glass, the hospital no longer felt like a fortress. It felt like a crossroads. Reporters packed the sidewalks. Patients filmed on their phones. Staff whispered her name without meaning to. Elena felt none of the triumph they expected her to feel. Only a quiet certainty that this wasn't over. It had simply changed shape. Cole cleared his throat. "They're asking who put you in charge last night." Elena allowed herself a small breath. No one did. Hale stirred, a soft sound in his throat. His eyes opened, clearer now. He looked at Elena first. Always her. "Did we make it to morning?" She nodded. "Barely." He smiled, thin but real. "Then it's begun." Elena met his gaze. "No, it's just visible now." Outside, the city woke up, unaware that something fundamental had shifted while it slept. Inside the room, Elena stayed where she was, grounded, unmoved, already bracing for the moment when the world would realize who had been holding the line all along. By noon, the hospital no longer belonged to itself. Black SUVs lined the street. Cameras nested on every curb. Inside, lawyers whispered to administrators who suddenly remembered Eleanor's name. The night had turned into evidence, and evidence had a way of rearranging power without asking permission. Hale woke fully just after the first briefing ended. He listened without interrupting, eyes fixed on the ceiling, absorbing the outlines of a future that would be measured in subpoenas and headlines. When the room cleared, he turned his head toward Elena. "You didn't save me so I could hide," he said. His voice was steady now. "I won't." She nodded once. "That's the only reason it worked." He smiled, the old authority replaced by something harder earned. "I'll say it all. Not half of it. Not the clean version." "Good," Elena said. "Truth doesn't need editing." Outside the room, the institution began its familiar dance of self-preservation. Committees formed. Statements softened. Apologies arrived early and hollow. Elena felt none of it touch her. She had already returned to the work that mattered, checking charts, steadying hands, keeping the world small enough to heal. A junior nurse stopped her in the hall, eyes bright with something like courage. "They're calling you a hero." Elena paused. "Heroes leave when the noise starts." She adjusted her sleeves and kept walking. By evening, Hale's statement went live. Names spoken plainly, timelines laid bare. The feed spread fast, unspooling years of quiet harm into daylight. The city reacted the way cities do when mirrors are held up to them. Loud, uncomfortable, necessary. Elena watched none of it. She finished her shift, washed her hands, and stepped into the cool air as dusk settled. The night felt different now. Not safer. Clearer. If this story moved you, take a moment to like and subscribe, and leave a comment with these 3 words. Speak truth now.